travels. I'm not sure if you've heard, but there's an election coming up. November 5th. Mark your calendars. Make sure you have a voting plan. Make sure your friends and your family have a plan too. Over the summer, I was honored to be among a distinguished panel of speakers at a voting rights rally in memory of the late Congressman John Lewis, hosted by the National Voter Corps, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works tirelessly to make sure that every eligible American voter is able to access their sacred right to vote. I shared this story, which I'd like to share with you tonight. For many years now, I've led groups of our synagogue's teens and adults on a civil rights journey through the South to better understand the powerful ways in which our faith and our commitment to working for justice intersect, and to inspire our congregants to continue to act as the work of civil rights is far from over, as it may seem sometimes to appear when learning about the movement of the 60s today. A cornerstone of our trip always is spending time in Selma, Alabama, the flashpoint of the push for voting rights back in 1965, where John Lewis, of blessed memory, then the president of SNCC, helped to organize the march from Selma to Montgomery to bring national attention to the inequalities, injustices, and inaccessibility of the voting establishment of his day, and was brutally beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Selma was and is a small town, plagued then and now with economic difficulties, still heavily segregated, and seems to embody so many of the challenges around civil rights our country still faces today. In many ways, it is a microcosm of our country today, a place that has had its own share of shining moments and hard times. But even amidst difficulty, there are voices of hope who work hard every day there to remind visitors of this nation's difficulties and its promise and possibilities as well, to honor its complicated past, to learn from it so that future generations can bring about real change, inspired by what transpired in Selma and the commitment to hope so many carried with them across that bridge and into Montgomery all those years ago. Again and again, the Voting Rights Act that so many fought for, were brutalized for, risked and gave their lives for, is being attacked and chipped away by those who seek to restrict the access, the right for all Americans to vote. Nearly 2 millennia ago, the rabbis of the Talmud taught that a ruler is not to be appointed unless the community is first consulted. There was an understanding by our Jewish sages then, which still rings true today, that a well-represented public is essential to effective moral leadership. The enterprise of democracy in which we and our leaders are in partnership requires that everyone's voice must be expressed and heard through their vote. The concept of political engagement, not partisan politics, but politics in the sense of the original Latin meaning, which is to engage in the life of our city, is nothing new to our Beth Am community. Rabbi Axelrod of blessed memory showed up in Selma in 1965 and spoke powerfully about his experience there back at Beth Am when he returned, and engaged in civil rights advocacy when he returned and throughout his time here at Beth Am. Civic engagement and the pursuit of justice has always been at the part of the very core of Beth Am. Our faith compels us to act in our world, to not stand idly by, to be the hands of God in our world. Prayer that is not followed by action is understood as incomplete. Our faith isn't meant to just make us feel good, but to inspire us to do the day-to-day, roll-up-your-sleeves work of repairing our world. Our members' engagement in and commitment to social justice work is a testament to these values. As we focus on voting tonight, I want to highlight our Pursue Justice team, most of whom I think are here tonight, if not all of the whole team. It's a big team, who have been working hard and tirelessly over the last many months, writing postcards to get voting information to registered voters, particularly in states where voter suppression is on the rise. Just this week, they crossed an important milestone. Our group, in partnership with some other communities like Moldau and another congregation in Tahoe, and led by the tireless efforts of the whole Pursue Justice team of volunteers, too many who to name tonight, but one name kept coming up from the whole team, which is Ina Bauman, who's really leading the postcarding effort this year, have now written, you ready for it? A little bit past 19,000 postcards. Not 1,900, 19,000 postcards. And their goal is to get to 20,000, and we're going to do it tonight. Well, maybe not tonight, but to do that, to get to 20,000 ahead of the election. These efforts are not around endorsing any or supporting any one candidate or party, but rather making sure that every registered voter in this country knows how and where to access their ballot and has a plan for how they're going to vote and where they're going to vote. Tonight, our Pursue Justice team has a table in the foyer with some resources. You can find information on how to make sure that you're registered to vote, where to go to update your address or pick up a packet of postcards as well to take home, to write, to encourage eligible voters and to register and vote across the country. They've also asked that I mention an important nonpartisan presentation and Q&A on the pros and cons of the California ballot propositions that's happening on Sunday, October 13th. It's 3 to 5, so you can sleep in after Yom Kippur is over, but then come here to get your civic duty going, 3 to 5 in the Beit Kehila on Sunday, October 13th. There will be presenters from the League of Women Voters, and it's co-sponsored by our Pursue Justice team and Beth Am Women. And of course, the work doesn't end after the election or with the election. It just begins. Once our ballots are counted and election officials are sworn in, the real work begins. For many years, Beth Am has been engaged in the work of community organizing, which, if you've been around long enough, you may remember this led to our groundbreaking Equal Start initiative, which brought opportunities for high-level advocacy and local volunteering around early childhood education. This was part of a broader network of local synagogues, churches, schools, and nonprofit organizations to create real change in our communities and our state. That broad network has waxed and waned over the years, but is experiencing a revitalization and is working towards a relaunch on November 3rd of a broad-based, robust network of local institutions to begin to build real power to act and influence change through nonpartisan political action, together with our neighbors across lines of faith, race, and class throughout Silicon Valley. If that sounds interesting to you, there's information on the voting rights table as well. Or you can talk to Charlie Rothschild about that. Where's Charlie? Is he still here? He was here. Maybe, oh, there he is. Okay. Instead of a set agenda, this organization builds power by connecting people through their most personal experiences of their community, through sharing stories of our struggles, those things that keep us up at night, and our hopes for the future. If this kind of partnership and advocacy work, partnership building and advocacy work sounds interesting to you, please come talk with me or Charlie or send me an email. 2,600 years ago, the prophet Jeremiah understood the importance of investing in the community in which we live. Writing to the downtrodden Jewish exiles in Babylonia 10 years after the destruction of the temple, he urged them not to allow their grief and their sorrow to overcome and overwhelm them. Instead, he wrote, "Seek the well-being, the shalom, of the city to which you have been exiled, and pray to God on its behalf, for in its peace and wholeness, you will find peace and wholeness." Jeremiah understood the incredible pain of their loss, but at the same time, he knew that languishing in sorrow would lead nowhere. And so he encouraged action. He knew that they were broken, so he told them to embrace their new surroundings and work with their new neighbors to bring about wholeness. When we engage in the work of tending to our country and our community, we begin to find new paths towards a sense of peace and wholeness. So let's get to work. Let's not take for granted one of our most sacred obligations, both as Jews and Americans, and vote. Shabbat shalom.